Dennis was an ugly but kind gigachad, who was an overpowered support mage. However, everything changed when he got kicked out of the hero's party for being too strong. So he decides to hide his powers and open a restaurant for misfits. It all begins during a disastrous dungeon raid when the Silverwing hero's party is getting whooped by an S-rank dragon, and the only one keeping them alive is Dennis. But before it's too late, he uses his intimidation skills to scare the dragon away and save the day. However, later that day, Dennis gets fired by the jealous captain, Vigo, who accuses him of sabotaging the raid by letting the dragon escape. The arrogant scum even mocks Dennis's job as a chef even though he's at level 99, but Dennis refuses to be rage-baited into a fight and gracefully leaves the guild. Hours later, Dennis reaches the city gate when Katie, the vice leader of the party, chases after him and begs him to stay because the other cooks are trash and can't even boil water properly. However, despite her past kindness to him, Dennis ignores her pleas because he plans to open a restaurant in another city far from the capital and waves her goodbye. Hours later, Dennis arrives in the new city and immediately starts shopping for items for his new restaurant when he comes across a slave auction. There, a slave trader is selling a young girl named Atelier, claiming she's an orphan from a noble house. Dennis initially resists intervening, but when the girl looks up, her sad eyes remind him of his own past when he was helpless. The auction begins, and everyone starts bidding on her, as if she were a bottle of Taylor Swift's bathwater, but thankfully, Dennis outbids all the creeps and wins. After, he takes her to get cleaned up and buys her a new dress, but when they arrive at his new restaurant, Atelier asks why he bought her. Dennis explains that she reminded him of himself when he was a weak, low-level street rat, and tells her that she is free to leave or stay upstairs. At that moment, her stomach rumbles, so Dennis cooks her a simple meal of fried rice. The aroma overwhelms Atelier, nearly knocking her out, and when she finally takes a bite, the food is so delicious that she bursts into tears. The next day, she decides to stay and help Dennis with the restaurant, and after giving her an apron, they spend the day running errands to finish preparations for the restaurant. After a final check of the restaurant, Dennis begins to yell like an idiot at the skies, pleading to the heavens for customers because he is now completely broke after spending his life savings to save Atelier. Suddenly, as if in answer to his prayer, the door to the restaurant opens, revealing an adventurer clad in full armor, which reminds Dennis of a restaurant rule stating that some customers value privacy and should be respected. Dennis welcomes the adventurer, directs him to a seat, encourages him to order a meal, and asks Atelier to bring a glass of water. As Dennis eagerly waits for his first customer to choose a meal, the adventurer remains silent and simply points at a small side dish. At first, Dennis assumes the customer is a light eater, but he later realizes the adventurer is dirt broke, with their wallet on life support. Not wanting his first served meal to be some cheap-ass garbage, Dennis decides to cook katsudon. However, the armored adventurer immediately starts tweaking and pleads that they cannot afford it. Dennis freezes when he hears the voice, finally realizing that the adventurer is actually a shorty hiding under the armor. While he prepares the meal, the chic adventurer introduces herself as Henrietta and explains that she got booted from her previous party because she had a plot hole, and they claimed her melons were a nerf on the battlefield. She tells Dennis that her dream is to become like the Crimson Swift Sword, Katie from the Silverwing Guild, but because she is a baddie, she has to hide inside her armor, or she will never get into a good adventure party. However, since she eventually has to talk, she keeps getting exposed and kicked out the moment they realize she is a girl. Henrietta explains that this cycle has left her financially extinct, as she has no way to earn money. Dennis then offers her the cooked meal and tells her that until she finds a new party, she can eat at the restaurant for free for the time being. After eating, Henrietta promises to pay him back once she joins a party. But Dennis, seeing she's weak and low-leveled, goes a step further and offers to help her look for a strong team. Sometime later, the restaurant fills with customers, and as they eat, they glaze the food like starved children, calling it the best they have ever eaten, while Dennis notices Atelier working herself to the bone. Just then, Dennis overhears a group of adventurers discussing a dungeon raid, so he asks if they need a swordsman, adding that she is a girl but extremely capable. To his surprise, they readily agree, explaining that they lack attack power and would not mind bringing her along the next day to the dungeon. Later that day, Dennis informs Henrietta, who is shocked that he found a party so quickly, and thanks him, promising that she will repay him for the free meals after making some cash. However, Dennis warns her to be cautious since the men are strangers, but Henrietta dismisses his concern, saying she can handle herself. She then begins stuffing her face while telling him that soon she would have enough cash to pay him back, prompting Dennis to tell her to stop speaking with her mouth full. That night, while serving two female adventurers, Dennis overhears them talking about a group of wanted adventurers who have been recruiting lone women adventurers and luring them deep into dungeons to forcefully watch Netflix and chill, and then abandoning them afterwards to die. This conversation leaves Dennis worried about the party he had found for Henrietta. The next day, Henrietta meets the party and introduces herself, while their leader, Still, tells her to relax and feel comfortable among them. As they walk through a forest, Henrietta asks what quest they are doing, and Still explains that they are heading to a nearby dungeon to collect materials. She considers asking which materials, but decides against it to avoid sounding pushy. Inside the dungeon, Henrietta fights off a monster, causing the party to glaze her like cream donuts. She blushes happily, thinking that, unlike her previous parties, who called her weak because of her huge jugs, this one might actually be her dream team. As they venture deeper into the dungeon, they trigger a trap, and a stone golem attacks. Henrietta goes all out and defeats it, and when another monster appears, she claps that one too. After the battle, she is exhausted and asks how close they are to the materials. Still tells her they are nearby, and soon they arrive at a cave filled with glowing crystals. Still explains that these are valuable memory crystals and what they came to collect, which finally puts Henrietta at ease, though she nearly collapses from exhaustion. Noticing this, Still orders a mage to cast a recovery spell on her. Instead, the mage approaches her and stuns her with lightning magic. As Henrietta reaches for her sword, Still kicks it away and mocks her for wasting her strength, and tells her that they will show her their magic staff and play with her plot hole for an hour before letting her go. Only then does Henrietta realize that their movements throughout the day had been sus, but she had been too polite to question them. She tries to call for help, but they are too deep in the dungeon for anyone to hear. Just as they begin to peel off her armor like an onion, Still hears a strange sound and asks one of the men to investigate. Just then, a powerful gust of wind blasts through the cave, knocking Still back. Dennis appears, disguised with a paper bag over his head and wielding 2 kitchen knives, and looking like a straight-up demon. The party panics, mistaking him for a dungeon boss. Still orders the mage to scan his stats, but the spell fails, revealing that they are far too low-level to fight him, which makes them panic. In an instant, Dennis vanishes and reappears behind Still, attacking him and slamming him into the wall before turning on the rest and beating the daylight out of them. As she watches, Henrietta notices that the paper bag man fights like a highly trained chef. Sometime later, at the restaurant, Henrietta tells Dennis everything that happened, explaining that she woke up at the Adventurers Guild and learned that her former party had been found tied up outside the dungeon and exposed as wanted criminals from another city. She then promises Dennis that she will be more careful when choosing party members, and as she speaks, her stomach rumbles in French. Dennis tells her to order whatever she wants, and the greedy glutton immediately picks the most expensive Hagen steak. Soon, new customers arrive just as the steak is finished. Dennis serves both Henrietta and Atelier the cooked Hagen steak, and as they eat, one of the customers asks why the restaurant was closed for 2 days, surprising Henrietta. Dennis casually replies that he had some business to handle, and as she watches him cook, Henrietta finally realizes that Dennis is the paper bag man, though before she can say anything, another customer walks in and interrupts her. Some days later, at the restaurant, Henrietta asks Dennis for advice on whether she should keep hiding the fact that she is a girl when joining parties. Dennis tells her to do whatever she wants, as long as the decision is her own. Henrietta, after thinking for a while, decides to ditch the armor and let the world know that she is a certified baddie with melons for days, and when she steps out of the changing room, Atelier gives her an approving thumbs up. Later on, as Henrietta chows down on ramen noodles, she thanks Dennis for the advice and glazes him as a man of wisdom. However, Dennis reminds her that she has been freeloading food for a few days and asks when she plans to get a new job, but she starts making excuses like your dad when you asked for a new Lego set as a kid. Dennis shuts that down immediately and tells her to get a job to clear her debt. As they argue, a handsome femboy walks into the restaurant and immediately begins aura farming while staring at the menu. He sighs dramatically and asks Dennis what the best meal is. Dennis replies that everything is good, and soon both he and Henrietta begin suggesting dishes for him, but the boy proudly shoots down every suggestion, which pisses Dennis off enough that he wants to beat him like a plushie, but Henrietta holds him back. However, Atelier steps in and suggests that he should try fried rice instead. The boy orders it, and Dennis begins cooking the most obviously incorrect fried rice imaginable by frying rice directly in oil. When the dish is finished and served, the boy takes a bite, and it hits him straight in the feelings. Dennis asks why he seems so down, and although the boy hesitates at first, he says that his level is higher than everyone else's on his team. He explains that everyone around him, including his ops, is weak-minded and has no plan to improve their talent because they focus on quests and money instead of levels. Dennis immediately uses this to tease Henrietta. Suddenly, the boy gets fired up and turns into a motivational speaker, ranting that adventurers should be competent and admits that he got kicked out of his party for calling them mid. Dennis begins to wonder if there is a sign outside the restaurant that says freaks and weirdos allowed. The boy then announces that he plans to join the Silver Wing Guild and become the greatest wizard alive. Dennis advises him to reduce his self-glaze, warning that true strength wasn't about levels, but having trustworthy teammates to rely on in the dungeons. The boy dismisses the advice, saying he will consider it once he finds a team that can match his aura. He pays for his meal and, before leaving, introduces himself as Vivia. Later that day, Vivia returns to the restaurant and, while eating, announces that he has joined the Night Mist Troop, the strongest guild in the city, boasting that he will soon move on to Silver Wing, the strongest guild in the world. He resumes glazing himself, already calling himself the greatest mage to exist, and brags that he has learnt a lot of skills. Dennis thinks he is doing too much and asks about his next job. Vivia explains that his guild plans to raid a level 5 dungeon the next day. Dennis pauses when he hears this and checks Vivia's stats with a search skill, discovering that he is only level 17. Since level 5 dungeons are meant for level 30 adventurers, Dennis asks if that is not too dangerous, but Vivia tells him not to worry because his new guild members will take care of him. Dennis presses further, warning that the risk is serious, but Vivia insists everything will be fine and adds that Night Mist thinks highly of him and would protect him. He also brushes off Dennis by saying that Dennis is not an adventurer and has no dungeon experience, which causes Dennis to remember the previous raid. Then Vivia pays and leaves the restaurant. Later, as Dennis and Atelier walk through the market, Dennis worries about Vivia and wonders if he should have stopped him, but Atelier reassures him that Vivia will be fine. Just then, Dennis conveniently overhears two men talking about Vivia and how their captain plans to abandon him on the 5th floor as a form of newbie hazing, adding that no one has survived the trial on the 5th floor yet. Dennis drags the men into an alley to interrogate them, and when they try to jump him, he smacks them unconscious before returning to Atelier, who tells him they need to help Vivia. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, Vivia is running for his life from goblins after being abandoned on the 5th floor as part of the test. He trips over a magical vine that binds his legs, and while trying to recall a spell to free himself, his mind blanks out like an old man forgetting why he entered a room. He starts crying because his toast is about to be burnt by goblins when a magic spell suddenly saves him. The goblins arrive but fail to find him, as he is now hiding in a cave with a young girl who helped him. He thanks her and asks for her name, and she introduces herself as Cynthia, explaining that she also fell into the trap and was abandoned by her party. She starts unloading her problems, but cringes when she realizes she is oversharing. Vivia admits that he had been gassing himself up and now realizes that he is not him. Cynthia tells him to go easy on himself, which cheers him up. Suddenly, the goblins start heading towards the cave, and Vivia decides to play the knight in shining armor by distracting them while Cynthia escapes, remembering how he used to look down on others for not matching his aura. Cynthia tries to stop him, but Vivia runs out and faces the goblins. Terrified, he summons a massive magic palm to block them, hoping Cynthia has escaped. The goblins tear through the spell like paper and are about to overwhelm him when Dennis appears as the paper bag man and summons a magic wall between them. Thinking Dennis is a monster, Vivia panics and spams palm magic until Dennis removes the paper bag and tells him to calm down. After recognizing Dennis's voice, Vivia relaxes, but Dennis smacks him on the head for charging at the goblins recklessly like that. As they run, Vivia tells about Cynthia and insists that they return to the cave to rescue her. But when they reach the cave, Vivia is shocked to find only a dusty skeleton wearing her clothes. Later, at the Adventurers Guild, they learn that Cynthia was missing and died 13 years ago after being abandoned in that same cave by her party members. Later that day, Dennis buries Cynthia's remains at a cemetery and tells Vivia that sometimes the spirits of fallen adventurers guide the living. Vivia tearfully places a flower on her grave, thanking her for saving his life, and vows to become a wizard strong enough to protect baddies like her. As they walk back toward the city, Dennis tries to cheer him up, and Vivia suddenly feels Cynthia's magic. He turns around and sees her spirit waving goodbye. Elsewhere in a library, a girl named Bachel is scolded by her boss for not making a proper report. Then he smacks her on the head angrily and asks if she is really a level 32 adventurer. Later that night, as she writes the report, she realizes that one of her superiors has been doing a trash job of recording. After a while, she gets tired, so she goes looking for a place to eat and ends up seeing Atelier, who invites her into the restaurant to eat a meal. After going through the menu, she orders the daily special, and while she waits for Dennis to cook it, she sees Vivia and Henrietta talking and envies them because they are so happy. Sometime later, the food is ready, and Bachel is surprised because she has never seen food like this before. After she takes a bite, it hits her in the spot, so she tells Dennis that she has never eaten anything so delicious. Henrietta recommends a meal for her to try, but Vivia teases her choice of food, and they begin to argue, which makes Bachel laugh for a while. However, as Dennis apologizes for the noise, she begins to cry and wonders why her life is so hard, why she has to work so hard into the night, and whether any of it is even worth it anymore. Then she remembers how gifted she was while she was younger with magic, and how, after growing up, she went to a magic school. Soon, she graduated and decided to join the Night Mist Troupe Guild to raise some money for her family and village. When she leaves the restaurant, they wonder what her deal was and if she was fine. But Vivia tells them that she is from the Night Mist Troupe and that he had seen her being scolded by her seniors. Henrietta then pleads with Dennis to help her if he can, but he tells them most guilds are hard on weaker adventurers, and unless Bachel stands up for herself, nothing will change. That morning, Bachel is so tired that she turns off her alarm and oversleeps, and when she wakes up, she panics and runs to meet her superiors, who simply call her a lazy bum. Later that day, in a dungeon, she saves one of the losers from being torn to pieces by a monster, but the man angrily pushes her away, annoyed that he was rescued by a little girl. That evening, as Bachel walks through the town, she remembers the man accusing her of showing off even when she was weaker than a paper towel, and when she tries to apologize, he tells her that they don't need her services anymore. Elsewhere, Vivia and Henrietta are heading towards the restaurant while talking about the meals they intend to eat, when they suddenly see Bachel from a distance walking like a zombie. Worried, they follow her, and later, at a tower, she tries to delete herself, but Henrietta jumps after her and grabs her, while Vivia uses his magic palm to catch them before they hit the ground. Meanwhile, at the restaurant, Atelier comes out of the shower naked to add some Lolita sauce to the show and tells Dennis that she feels hot. Dennis, not wanting to catch a case quickly, runs off and grabs a small towel that barely covers her. At that instant, Vivia and Henrietta arrive at the restaurant with Bachel. Vivia sees Atelier in her birthday suit and instantly turns around, while Dennis angrily tells Atelier to wear some clothes. However, he then notices Bachel unconscious on Henrietta's shoulder. Sometime later, while Atelier is watching over the sleeping Bachel, Dennis tells them that Bachel needs to stand up for herself, and if she doesn't, she will most likely break down again. That night, the guild leader of the Night Mist Guild, a man called Hopper, comes to the restaurant with Bachel's party to see Dennis. He apologizes for the stress Bachel has caused and thanks Dennis for looking after her. However, Dennis knows he is pretending and checks his stats. He is impressed when he sees Hopper's level is 51, which is quite high, but he still tells them that Bachel is resting and asks Hopper to let her get some rest. Hopper refuses, demands that Dennis release Bachel immediately so she can return to work, and then shows him her contract. Dennis gets very angry when he reads it, calling them exploitative pieces of garbage like his former guild, and wonders why Bachel would sign something that meant she would be doing the work of almost 4 people. At that point, Hopper smashes his cup to establish dominance, telling Dennis that his guild runs the city and ordering him to be a good little snookums and bring Bachel out immediately. Meanwhile, upstairs, Atelier speaks with Bachel, who has now woken up and tries to encourage her. Atelier tells her about her past slavery and how she always wanted to die, but that her life changed when she met Dennis. She then tells Bachel to eat some delicious food before making any final decisions. Back at the restaurant, Hopper threatens Dennis, saying that if he doesn't comply and bring out Bachel, he will burn down the adventurer's restaurant. Dennis starts to get pissed, but the meeting is suddenly interrupted by Katie, who has come to visit him. Dennis tells her he is quite busy, but she ignores Hopper entirely and shamelessly begs Dennis for a meal. Hopper, wondering who she is, notices her red hair, red swords, red armor holding her enormous jugs, and finally her coat with the silver wing symbol, which convinces him that she is Crimson Sword, the vice guild leader of Silver Wing. When Katie hears him say her title, she asks who he is, surprising everyone because she is very popular. She then goes back to talking to Dennis, but Dennis orders her to sit down and wait like a little girl, shocking everyone and making them question their relationship. Dennis returns to talking to Hopper and tells him to let Bachel go, but they are interrupted again when Katie hugs Vivia and calls him the cutest girl she has ever seen. Dennis tells her Vivia is a guy, and Vivia, using the chance, asks how she knows Dennis. Katie is surprised he hasn't told them, and despite Dennis trying to stop her, she reveals that Dennis was a former member of Silver Wing, and her partner who protected weak adventurers during raids. This shocks everyone in the room, forcing Dennis to yell at Vivia and Henrietta to stop screaming. Hopper, now afraid and not wanting the smoke after all, orders his goon to burn the contract and tells Dennis that he will allow Bachel to leave the party before running off like rats. After they go, Katie gets angry that they tried to threaten Dennis and asks if she should destroy the entire Night Mist Guild, but Dennis tells her to chill and not get cocky. At that moment, Atelier leads Bachel downstairs and asks Dennis to make today's special. After serving the meal, Katie cuts through it like a starved cow, while Bachel eats quietly, no longer depressed and no longer thinking about giving up. Sometime later, at the Silverwind Guild, Katie overhears some guild members talking about how Vigo has lost his marbles in the hallway. Soon after, she runs into him, and he dismisses the guild members before telling Katie, like a stalker, that he knows she went to see Dennis. She tells him she only went to eat his food, but then she remembers that a while ago, she had asked Dennis to come back because the guild was falling apart, and although she explained that a lot of people Dennis protected during raids are now pissed at Vigo, Dennis still refused. He told her that he liked it there as a chef, and that there was no chance he was going back to the guild. Back in the present, she tells Vigo that they should bring Dennis back, but he refuses, saying he would rather be bald like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and then forbids her from ever seeing Dennis again. Katie tries to reason with him, but he puts a period on the conversation and walks away. At the restaurant, a lot of customers are ordering food, and Atelier is moving around like a rabbit, making deliveries and taking orders. Soon, Bachel joins her, and when Vivia and Henrietta speak with her, she thanks them for visiting her and tells them that she will be living and working at the restaurant with Atelier. Just then, Dennis brings out a dish, and when Henrietta and Vivia taste it, it hits them right in their fields. Henrietta begins to glaze the meat as if it were the next best thing after sliced bread, but she is quickly reminded that she hasn't paid her debt yet. She panics and begins telling Dennis that she still hasn't found a job and apologizes at the same time. Meanwhile, Vivia notices that Atelier is having fun while serving the guests and says that something good might have happened to her. Dennis panics and drops a pot when he hears this, then tells Vivia that he has a problem he needs help with and wants his advice. When Henrietta hears this, she offers to join, but Dennis crushes her soul and turns her down. That night, as Henrietta takes a shower, she begins to wonder if Dennis needed Vivia's help in banning her from the restaurant, so she plans to come up with an idea to pay her debt. The next day at the restaurant, Dennis confides in Vivia that Atelier might have a boyfriend. He tells him that recently he started giving her some pocket money, that she had begun going on strange walks, and that one day he followed her and saw Atelier holding hands with a boy. Vivia tells him not to read too much into it, saying the boy might just be a friend, and that if he is really worried, he could simply ask her about it. Dennis tells him that he doesn't want Atelier to see him as a weirdo if he asks. Dennis then heats up, saying the boy has disrespected him, should have asked for permission before dating her, and that if he isn't at least level 80, Dennis will beat him silly. Suddenly, Atelier shocks them by appearing and asking what they were talking about. Vivia quickly saves his butt and says he was learning how to cook from Dennis. Atelier also says she wants to learn too, which excites Dennis, so he tells her to wash her hands first, and then they will begin. Sometime later, he shows them how to cut onions, but it makes both Atelier and Vivia tear up. He ignores Vivia and focuses on showing Atelier how to do it properly, and as she does, it reminds him of when he learned cooking from his foster mother. After that, he shows her how to use the oven and whisk eggs, and in the end, she makes a meal called katsudon, which Dennis praises while completely ignoring Vivia's cooking. At that instant, the clock bell chimes, and Atelier excuses herself to go for a walk, leaving Dennis and Vivia behind. Just then, Bachel appears, and Dennis gives her a list, telling her to take care of the restaurant while he and Vivia go out to track Atelier. Suddenly, Henrietta arrives too, and Dennis tells her to help Bachel with the restaurant, before grabbing Vivia like a Chanel handbag and running off to look for Atelier. Soon, they find her, and as they watch from a distance, Vivia tells Dennis to just ask her directly because they look like creepy stalkers at this point. Just then, Dennis shows him that the boy has appeared, and they follow them to a jewelry store, which makes Dennis panic because he thinks the boy wants to buy Atelier an engagement ring. Seeing Dennis have a meltdown, Vivia decides to help him and tells Dennis that he has an idea. Elsewhere, Bachel finds Henrietta sitting sadly under a tree, and when she asks what the problem is, Henrietta tells her she has no money saved to pay back her debt to Dennis. She explains that as a swordswoman, All her cash goes into maintaining her equipment and buying health potions, and that she wishes she could show Dennis her appreciation, but doesn't know how. Bachel simply tells her that everything will be fine in the end. Just then, they overhear people saying that the Night Mist Guild leader, Hopper, has been losing his street cred ever since Dennis took Bachel away from him. Somewhere else, Vivia is on Dennis's shoulders, holding a magical megaphone that he explains allows him to hear voices from a distance like a proper stalker. He places it against the jewelry store window using magic, and they begin listening, soon hearing Atelier say words like handsome, love, and treasure for a lifetime, which makes Dennis panic, thinking Atelier is in love. Meanwhile, an old woman watches them and wonders why they are acting creepy by the window. Suddenly, a man steals her bag and runs away with it, drawing Dennis and Vivia's attention as they chase after him. The thief is shocked when he looks back and sees Dennis, with Vivia on his shoulder, catching up to a level 30 adventurer like himself. He uses magic to boost himself over a wall, but Dennis tells Vivia to use magic to help him, prompting Vivia to use palm magic. Dennis jumps onto the palm and leaps high into the air, making Vivia panic because he doesn't want to be splattered on the floor. However, Vivia starts spamming palm magic to keep them mid-air. They catch up to the thief, but he attacks them with a wind spell and runs off, excited because he thinks he has escaped. Dennis continues chasing him and leaps into the air again, and at that moment, he spots Bachel and Henrietta and calls out to them to catch the thief. Henrietta immediately jumps into the air and whacks the thief with a Beyblade attack, and when Dennis runs up to them, he pats her head and calls her the best. That night, Dennis tells them that Atelier has a boyfriend, but Vivia still doesn't agree with him. Bachel then brings up Henrietta's lack of money to pay for food, which Dennis responds to by saying he would never ban anyone who enjoys his food, although Henrietta still needs to find a job. Suddenly, Atelier opens the door and walks into the restaurant, ignoring all of them. She walks up to Dennis and gives him a gift, which turns out to be a crystal bracelet. Atelier explains that she had it made for him using her pocket money. Vivia finally understands and explains that the boy with Atelier was actually a jeweler's apprentice. Henrietta is about to reveal that they thought Atelier had a boyfriend, but Dennis warns her that he will ban her if she does. She pleads with him and promises to buy him a present too. Finally, Dennis tries on the bracelet and thanks Atelier for the wonderful gift. Some days later, at the restaurant, Dennis finishes cooking and is about to close when an old man suddenly enters the restaurant. He cries when he sees Atelier, calling her my lady. Henrietta immediately thinks the man is a lolicon and wants to cut him down, but Vivia tells her to chill and not jump to conclusions. The man then introduces himself to her as Stevens, her old butler, and reveals that her real name is Atelier Workstatt, which stuns Bachel and Vivia. Dennis doesn't understand what the name means, but Vivia explains that the Workstatts are a noble family known for producing the most powerful wizards of all time. The man then tells Atelier that she must soon return home to reclaim her inheritance. Afterwards, he explains to the group that he came at the request of the royal court. He tells them that after Atelier's father's death, her uncle, a man named Joseph, stole her inheritance and threw Atelier out by lying that she didn't have Workstatt blood in her veins. However, her father's will was recently discovered, naming Atelier as his rightful heir, although the royal court wants to investigate whether Atelier is truly a Workstatt or not. He pleads with her to follow him back home, but she refuses. When Dennis asks her why, she simply tells him that it doesn't matter. Frustrated, the butler tells her that working in this dumpster fire is beneath her, and once again urges her to follow him to the capital. Dennis thinks for a moment and then asks Atelier if she is truly sure she won't go, reminding her that she will have to deal with this issue eventually. Atelier tells him that she will go only if he comes with her, to which Dennis agrees. The next day outside the restaurant, Dennis is dripped out in a suit, while Vivia tries to aura farm with his new coat. As Dennis prepares to leave and instructs the girls to take care of the restaurant in his absence, Atelier suddenly appears wearing a beautiful gown that makes all of them admire her. She tells Dennis that she still doesn't want to go, but he pats her head and reassures her that he will be with her. Soon, they board a carriage and begin the journey to the royal capital. After traveling for quite some time, they arrive in the city, where Vivia, being a country bumpkin, gets excited over everything he sees. While Vivia is distracted, Dennis notices the doors to a restaurant he once worked in. After some time, they arrive at a building and meet a man named Sestovich, who introduces himself as the lawyer handling Atelier's inheritance case. He explains that they will need a sample of Atelier's blood, but when she sees the needle, she wimps out and admits she is scared of needles. After the butler extracts her blood, she immediately passes out. Dennis hands her to Vivia to carry and then speaks with Sestovich about her. Sestovich explains that Atelier's father, a powerful mage named Famas, possessed hypnosis magic that could affect the heart and mind, although he only used it to help people. He goes on to explain that Famas was logged out from the server by his brother Joseph, who wanted his position, and that Joseph then threw Atelier out like discarded tissue while taking over everything. However, Famas left behind a will, and now that it has been discovered, the royal court wants to see if Atelier's claim is verified. Soon, they arrive at a courtroom, where Sestovich presents a magical device and pours a bit of Atelier's blood into it along with some of her father's blood. Suddenly, a pink crystal forms. Sestovich explains that the device turns blood into a pink crystal if the two samples are related. He repeats the test using Atelier's blood and her late mother's blood, achieving the same result, and congratulates them, saying they will win the case with this proof. Sometime later, the court session begins, with Joseph and his goons on one side and Dennis and Atelier's group on the other. Joseph mocks Dennis for getting kicked out of the Silver Wing Guild, but Dennis tells him he will deal with him later for treating Atelier like garbage. The court proceeds, and the judge reads Famas's will, stating that all his power and wealth will go to Atelier, while all his books will go to Joseph. Joseph's lawyer objects, claiming that while Famas was her father, Atelier's mother was merely a side chick whose kitty Atelier's father had been slapping, meaning Atelier was not a pure workstat by blood. Sestovich responds that they can prove Atelier's mother was actually Lord Famas's wife, but Joseph laughs and claims Atelier is the daughter of a random pole rider. A doctor then extracts Atelier's blood with a needle while Dennis holds her hand to comfort her. Afterwards, everyone in the courtroom draws sticks to decide who will operate the device, and Stevens, the butler, ends up with the marked stick. After a while, the test begins. Stevens mixes Lord Famas's blood with Atelier's, producing a pink crystal. He then tests Atelier's blood with Lord Famas's wife's blood, which briefly forms a crystal before dissolving into black liquid, indicating no match. Sestovich is shocked and demands a retest, but Joseph laughs and claims the result will not change, adding that his brother put his zoom zoom in a random woman's boom boom. The judge rules that since Atelier is only half workstat, she will inherit her father's books and knowledge, while Joseph will inherit all his wealth and power. However, Dennis notices the butler shaking like a leaf while holding a bloody handkerchief. He grabs him like a rag doll and exposes that Stevens tampered with the test using his own blood. The butler begs for mercy, claiming Joseph promised him rewards, but Dennis burns him up like a Thanksgiving turkey. As the judge tries to restore order, Dennis reveals that the entire trial was rigged, explaining that the judge manipulated the stick selection so the butler could cheat. Furious over Atelier's treatment, Dennis begins to lose control, and although knights rush in to restrain him, they hesitate when they see his burning flames. Just as he is about to turn everyone into pot roast, Vivia grabs him from behind and begs him to stop, reminding him that Atelier would have no one to protect her if he ends up in prison. This finally calms him down. After being kicked out of the courtroom, Dennis apologizes to Sestovich for his actions and admits he regrets bringing Atelier there. However, Sestovich advises them to visit the library Atelier inherited before leaving. At the library, they discover the entire place has been abandoned. While exploring, Atelier accidentally falls into a hidden underground library, and when Sestovich and Vivia examine the books inside, they panic because every single book is an ancient magic tome worth a fortune. Sestovich suggests that this may have been Famas's plan all along, knowing his brother would never allow Atelier to inherit his wealth or power. Dennis laughs at the clever plan and asks Atelier what she wants to do with the books. She tells him she wants to take them to the restaurant and let everyone read them, which stuns both Sestovich and Vivia. Sometime later, after packing up the books, Vivia encounters a man named Heath wearing a trench coat and a hat looking like a clone of Dennis. The man asks if they have met before, but Vivia is shaken and doesn't answer because he looks a lot like Dennis but gives off serious evil anime villain vibes. Luckily, Dennis calls out to him, and after Vivia leaves, a girl appears and tells Heath that Vivia is a companion of Dennis, his look-alike. Some months later, at the restaurant, there is a huge crowd of mages outside trying to get in because of the rare magic books. Meanwhile, inside the restaurant, the mages are surprised by the quality of the books, which annoys Dennis, who reminds them that this isn't a library but a restaurant. Just then, a mage pleads with Dennis for permission to borrow a book that will help him cure his sick wife. Dennis calls Atelier over, and she permits him, but when the others see this, they also try to ask for permission. Dennis chases them off and goes back to cooking for the new customers, prompting Vivia to tell him to take it easy and not burn out. In a dream, Dennis remembers his past, when he was a dirt-poor street rat standing in the rain. A woman's wallet had dropped in front of him, but instead of stealing it, he returned it to her, and in return, she took him to her house and gave him a delicious meal as a reward. When he wakes up, he sees the gang, and they tell him that he collapsed from exhaustion and has a fever. He tries to get up and continue cooking, but they tell him to rest, while Vivia explains that Atelier has been worried he wouldn't wake up. Dennis tells them not to worry and goes back to sleep as they talk about how he overworks himself. As they turn to leave, Atelier stays behind to look after Dennis. Outside the room, as they all sit moping, Henrietta gets an idea to make Dennis a sweet meal of okayu, hoping it will get him back on his feet. After putting on her armor, she goes to look for ingredients and returns with a huge chunk of meat, which surprises Vivia because okayu doesn't need meat. When she tries to cut it, she alarms Vivia, who panics that she will destroy the restaurant and attempts to take it from her. Bachel then comes in and sees them fighting, and at that moment, Sestovich enters the restaurant and worriedly asks about Dennis's health. Meanwhile, upstairs, Atelier watches over Dennis as he sleeps. She remembers how he fought on her behalf at the court and places a bag of ice on his head to help fight the fever. At the same time, Dennis dreams about his younger days working at a restaurant. He remembers pissing off the assistant chef and running away, while the assistant chef complains to the head chef that Dennis sliced the cabbage he worked on into powdered pieces and insists Dennis should be whooped. The head chef, however, simply tells him that's just how Dennis is. On another day in the dream, Dennis walks into the restaurant with a meal he used magic to make. A woman notices him, and he offers her the food. She takes a spoonful and almost despawns, causing everyone to panic. But the head chef arrives, sees the meal Dennis made, purifies it with magic, and offers it back to the woman. When she tries it again, she tells everyone it's delicious. Later that day, Dennis apologizes to the head chef for using a weird spell on the food and nearly sending the woman to the Shadow Realm. He cries like a whale, promises to study more, and asks how she fixed his fried rice. She tells him it was easy because she is known as the legendary fried rice expert, adding that one day he could be like that too, but more than that, she tells him, a good chef feeds people, a great chef protects them. Back at the restaurant, Sestovich explains that he came to read a special grimoire from Lady Atelier's collection, but since Dennis is sick, they will have to cook instead. He tells everyone to prepare to make some rice and passionately explains, like a foodie, that rice is the first step to making okayu, adding that using magic could create a delicious meal. Soon, they begin planning how to cook rice with magic. Bachel suggests using flame magic, but Vivia warns that the rice could end up soggy if flame magic is used incorrectly. Meanwhile, Henrietta is completely lost and stares at them like they're missing a few screws. At that moment, Bachel suggests another method of cooking rice, but Vivia shuts it down, which frustrates Sestovich. While they argue, Henrietta simply takes a seat and chills in the background. Eventually, Sestovich proposes using 2 types of flame to cook the rice, while Henrietta has fully logged out of the conversation because she doesn't know jack about magic. Unexpectedly, Polvo the merchant enters the restaurant and says he brought a book for Dennis to read while he's sick. While flipping through it, Henrietta learns about an item called a rice box that makes okayu. When she tells Polvo about their plan to use 2 types of fire, he says it's the dumbest thing he's ever heard, making the 3 idiots feel sad. Later, after they finally use the rice box, Atelier comes downstairs and tells them that Dennis's fever has gone down. When they explain they want to make okayu, she suggests using eggs, and soon she begins stirring them for the meal, while the others yap away their remaining brain cells. That night, Dennis wakes up and sees Atelier, who serves him a bowl of egg okayu. The meal reminds him of the head chef, and he thanks Atelier, telling her it was perfect. A few days later, Henrietta is walking through town with a huge bag, looking happily smug, like she got her kitty spanked the previous night. She runs into Vivia, who asks why her bag is so huge. Just then, a man interrupts them and asks why they aren't at the restaurant as usual. They tell him that the restaurant is closed because they're going on a trip. Then they smile at each other like they share a combined IQ of 5. Meanwhile, at the restaurant, Dennis, Bachel, and Atelier are planning to head out, and soon they're joined by Vivia and Henrietta. Henrietta does a quick item roll call for soap, buckets, and towels. Later that day, they arrive at a bathhouse. Dennis is undressed, and Vivia is shocked by how huge he is, going as far as touching his body. On the other hand, Dennis is surprised by how skinny Vivia is and asks if he's modeling for hunger. He then tells him to take off his towel so they can bond properly. Meanwhile, on the girl's side, Henrietta hears them and remarks that they're having fun while she washes Atelier's hair. Bachel then asks Henrietta how she has such a curvy body with 2 enormous jugs, while Atelier looks sadly at her peanut-sized chest. After their bath, they gather for a meal. During it, Henrietta makes a boring speech thanking everyone for caring for her, before happily announcing that she got a job, not as an adventurer, but with the city's knights. Everyone claps because her freeloading days are finally over. Next, Vivia steps up and announces that he's joined a new party. Henrietta congratulates him for leaving net status, but he shoots her down, telling her that he's never been broke like her. Lastly, it's Bachel's turn. She tells everyone that she'll be returning home to become a magic tutor in her village. Dennis makes a toast, and soon they begin to eat. Vivia loudly points out that everyone is going their separate ways and admits that he'll be lonely without them. They each begin thinking about delaying their deployments, but Dennis tells them not to be wimps and to chase their dreams regardless. Soon, Dennis decides to prepare magical fried rice, shooting beams from the pot as he cooks. Out of nowhere, Polvo the creepy merchant appears and helps himself to a plate. Dennis recognizes him, but only Atelier remembers his name, which gets the Lalacan bricked up. He then tries to offer her a job, but Dennis knocks him on the head. Still, Dennis thanks him for the rice box he gave them while he was sick. Polvo decides to give them a treat and gives them some rare Hagen meat, which Dennis promptly slices up and turns into barbecue. As they eat, Polvo confesses that he brought the meat for his Lolita Atelier and starts crying when he sees her feeding Dennis a bite. However, she also feeds Polvo a bite, almost sending him to the Shadow Realm as he gets a massive nosebleed. After dinner, while the ladies wash dishes and Polvo has wet dreams about Atelier, Vivia asks Dennis if he's connected to the famous Black's restaurant in the capital, since he heard his full name is Dennis Black. Dennis explains that the name belonged to the head chef who adopted him. He adds that he left after a huge fight because he was proud, thinking he'd easily reach level 100, but also because he felt they were holding him back. That night, back in the city, 2 mages head to the restaurant for dinner, only to be disappointed when they find it closed. Suddenly, some men appear from the corner of the building and shove them aside. The mages get annoyed, and one shoots one of the turd holes in his turd hole, while the other summons a monster to attack. As they demand an apology, someone points out that a fire has broken out on the side of the restaurant. Meanwhile, Dennis and the gang are back in town. Atelier notices the fire from a distance, and Dennis realizes it's the restaurant's location. He runs there in a panic, only to find the entire place in flames. Everyone is shocked. As people scramble to find someone who can use water magic, someone points the men out to Dennis as the ones responsible. The men claim it was the work of the Night Mist troops, the Workstadt House, and the Silver Wing Guild. They say this is his punishment for being too cocky, and that they want him destroyed. After the fire dies out, the once beautiful restaurant, filled with rare magical books, is now completely charred. Dennis says he believes the order came from Joseph as revenge. He blames himself, but Vivia insists it isn't his fault, and the group offers to fight together. However, Dennis refuses, saying he'll build another restaurant elsewhere, because they can't afford to fight the Workstadt House and the Silver Wing Guild at the same time. The group is stunned, realizing Dennis is acting like the word that rhymes with Little Witch. As he takes Atelier and walks away, Vivia calls him a coward. Dennis then opens a safe that survived the fire and explains to Atelier that he can't involve the group in his problems with Vigo and Joseph, which is why he said those things. He apologizes for her damaged books, but she doesn't care and asks if she can follow him when he leaves. He agrees, telling her that one day they might visit the town again. Then they fist bump. Meanwhile, outside the restaurant, the group stands sadly, as if they were just forced to eat dog poop. Suddenly, some men begin walking toward them, and when Dennis and Atelier come out of the restaurant, he sees everyone striking an Avengers pose. Bachel tells him that they don't intend to let this diss go unanswered, while Henrietta adds that he should join them and stop being a wimp. Dennis is shocked when he sees everyone standing there. Vivia uses the chance to plead with him to stop being selfish and let others help him, then points out all the people who showed up for him. Soon, everyone starts doing that emotional motivational nonsense, yelling, "Let us help you, Dennis, blah blah blah." Even Polvo joins in, along with some green filler characters we've never even seen before. Dennis is overwhelmed by their kindness and finally agrees to fight back, adding that he doesn't like being called a wimp or a coward, which spooks Henrietta a bit. They then decide to give the team a name, and Atelier suggests calling them the Outcast Restaurant and the Merry Townspeople. Everyone begins cheering excitedly, and when Vivia asks Dennis what the plan for revenge is, Katie suddenly shows up out of nowhere and calls out to him. She apologizes for coming late, then explains that she overheard Vigo telling a guild member to instruct the Night Mist Guild to burn down Dennis's restaurant. When she heard this, she ran down to try to stop it. Dennis demands that she tell him about Vigo's movements, but she apologizes, takes responsibility on Vigo's behalf, and refuses to spy on her guild. She leaves, but pauses for a moment to tell him one last thing. Some days later, the gang is riding in a carriage when Dennis shocks them by saying there's a way for adventurers to reach level 100. Vivia is stunned and explains that the highest level most people reach is level 60. The few who break that bottleneck end up stuck at level 99, and the very few who reach level 100 become rank sovereigns and are so rare that their names are written in history books. Dennis tells Vivia to calm down with the fangirling, then adds that his foster mother, the head chef, found a way to hit level 100 using only her cooking skills. He explains that she holds the secret to ranking up, and with her help, they might be able to get revenge. Soon, they arrive at the royal capital, and everyone puts on cloaks before dispersing to carry out secret assignments. Vivia heads to a seamstress and hands her a card, telling her to get ready. Shortly after, he uses his face card Riz to knock her unconscious. Elsewhere in the city, Bachel speaks to villagers in cloaks, asking them to meet with the city's mages for help and pleading with everyone to do their best. Meanwhile, Henrietta meets with Sestovich and informs him about the burned-down restaurant. She explains that although the leader of the Night Mist Guild was arrested, the Silver Wing used their connections to set him free. Sestovich admits that fighting them would be difficult, but when Henrietta says she has a plan, he locks in and listens. In another part of town, Polvo is seen commanding a group of men to move some boxes. As they work, they complain that he's a creep, though a very good businessman. Polvo interrupts them and tells them to move faster. He then goes to meet Atelier, who is examining a magical spying instrument. When he tries to use it as a megaphone and it fails, he promises to fix it. Just then, the mage who borrowed a book from Atelier to save his wife returns it, thanking her and explaining that it helped his wife recover. Seeing that they're busy, he asks if there's any way he can help, revealing that he's a powerful wizard who can use wind magic. Atelier and Polvo tell him to join them. Meanwhile, as everyone runs different missions around the city, Dennis stands outside Black's restaurant, wondering how he'll enter after leaving years ago. When he finally walks in, everyone is surprised and excited, thinking he's returned for good. However, he tells them he only wants to see the head chef. He meets an old friend named Hezmochi, who takes him to her. When Dennis sees her, he awkwardly tries to speak, but she welcomes him back and asks if he's found a way to reach level 100. Dennis admits that he hasn't yet. He then tells her that Katie, the current Vice Guild leader of the Silver Wing, informed him about an upcoming meeting between Vigo, Joseph Workstadt, and the Night Mist leader, Hopper, where they plan to have a feast. The head chef asks Dennis what he wants. He replies that he needs her to use her connections as the best chef in the city to find out where and when the meeting will take place. She asks what he plans to do once he knows, adding that she doesn't approve of interrupting people's meals. Dennis grips the bracelet Atelier gave him and admits that he knows it's a low blow, but that he needs her help. The head chef then asks Dennis what his motivation is and why he returned to her, who is his foster mother, after so many years. He tells her that Atelier, the gang, his restaurant, and his customers are the reasons he would do anything. She's impressed by his answer and agrees to help him, but first tells him that she taught him everything he knows about cooking, except for one thing, which could help him reach level 100. Soon after, he leaves the restaurant, trying to understand the hint. That night, he receives a visit from Hezmochi, who gives him the details of the meeting he asked for. Dennis announces this to the Outcast Adventurers group, which makes them cheer. The next morning, Vigo tells Katie that he is heading to a meeting to take care of some business. She gives him a pat on the shoulder and wishes him luck. As he rides in a carriage, he remembers his past when he was younger. His dad had died from a disease, and their mother abandoned them and turned to Pole sausage riding on the streets, leaving only him and his sick brother. Vigo had to work in the fields to care for them. One day, a rich widow and her butler gave them some food and promised Vigo a new hoe for farm work because their old one was damaged. He thanked her, but as soon as she left, he told his brother that the woman was just pretentious and was using them as a charity case. One day, he shadow banned the widow's son's dog with his hoe because it always barked at him. When the widow asked Vigo who deleted the dog, he denied it. But her butler at that moment saw a blood stain on his brother's shirt and grabbed him, accusing him of doing it. Vigo kicked the butler from behind and admitted he had bonked the dog into the next life, while his brother tried to stop him because he loved the dog. The widow then ordered him to be punished. That night, when he returned home, he had been whipped thoroughly, but Vigo had his revenge one night when he set their mansion on fire, destroying everything that the widow had. His brother, seeing Vigo in full anime villain mode, left him alone, but this didn't stop Vigo. Soon he began sword training, practicing day and night. Soon, he started beating up thugs, and when he was older, he joined an adventurer guild called the Silver Fang, becoming the second strongest after their captain. Solo clearing dungeons with monsters by himself. One day, the guild leader asked to speak with him, telling him to stop going solo and work as a team with his party. As they talked, a dormant cave dragon appeared behind them. Vigo, seeing this, enraged the dragon and left the guild leader, who got wiped out. Soon afterwards, Vigo became the new guild leader. However, members began leaving due to his cold attitude, so he hired new adventurers and changed the guild name from Silver Fang to Silver Wing. As he hired Katie, he told her to join him and promised to make her the strongest adventurer. Now, in the present, Vigo arrives at his destination, which is a beautiful mansion. When he enters a room, Joseph Workstat, Hopper from the Night Mist Guild, and the corrupt judge from the trial are all present. Vigo closes the curtains, even though Joseph says he reserved the entire mansion. Sometime later, as they eat, Joseph mocks Atelier for thinking she would have gotten anything and commends Vigo for burning down the restaurant, books included. Vigo tells him that with all their powers combined, there would be nothing they couldn't get away with. Joseph discloses that he plans to rule the kingdom from the shadows, but he adds that it's Dennis who brought them together. They raise a toast to Dennis's demise. Suddenly, Vivia walks in disguised as a waiter and rolls in a dish, which angers Vigo because he didn't knock. Upon opening the dish, they find fried rice, which Vivia says is the chef's specialty. Joseph takes a spoon, is surprised at how delicious it tastes, and starts eating. Vigo is disgusted, but soon the others begin eating as well and are shocked at the taste. Joseph orders Vivia to bring more fried rice and demands the chef as well, saying he wants to hire him. As Vivia leaves, Vigo thinks the men here are fools. Joseph is a powerless pig who can't use magic but is extremely evil, while the judge is a greedy old snake, and Hopper is a brainless, low-budget villain who can't think for himself. He decides to log them out of the server when he's done with them, and then becomes a noble. He would take down the king and rule as the new one with Katie as his queen. He tastes a bit of the fried rice and recognizes it as Dennis's cooking. Suddenly, the doors burst open, and Dennis walks in as the paper bag man, holding a plate of fried rice. He removes the paper and declares it's time for them to receive a whooping for burning down his restaurant. Joseph is scared and orders Hopper and Vigo to delete him. Vigo asks what his plan is because the most powerful men in the kingdom are present, and he cannot kill them. Dennis gets angry and yells loudly at them, saying he will make them regret being born. His yelling scares them so much that they fall like rats in a spotlight. Vigo is surprised that they have no backbone. As Dennis yells, Joseph admits to everything, from burning down the restaurant to destroying Atelier's books on purpose. Vigo notices Dennis using magic, but before he can stop Joseph from spilling more, Joseph reveals that they all planned it together. Dennis then reveals that Vivia and a mage have been broadcasting their conversations with magic to everyone. Prompted by this, Vigo attacks Vivia and the mage, but they escape to the courtyard, where he is stunned to see a large crowd of mages and people who have heard the entire conversation. Dennis then tells Vigo that the mages present are all connected, which means every mage in the capital heard the broadcast. The mages are furious after hearing the conversation, because the restaurant holds so many rare magical books. Meanwhile, Dennis reminds Vigo that these mages are also the ones who enforce the law in the kingdom, which means he is royally screwed. Soon, the outcast restaurant members begin celebrating that their plan worked, while Sestavich announces that all the barristers heard the broadcast too. Some mages start opening the doors to the room to arrest the guilty men, but Dennis ragebaits Vigo, telling him it served him right. Vigo lunges at Dennis, pushing him into the courtyard, and Dennis quickly warns Vivia to take Atelier and run. A ball of blue light suddenly lands in the courtyard, revealing Vigo, who is aura farming. He tells Dennis that he should have uninstalled him years ago. Vigo summons a blue aura around his sword, and Dennis, wanting the smoke, summons his kitchen knives with an icy aura, and then they clash. Vigo stomps the ground, forcing Dennis to dodge into the air, and then begins batting rocks at him like baseballs while Dennis summons a huge pan to block the attacks. As they fight, Vigo remembers the day he first met Dennis. He had checked Dennis's stats and was unimpressed because he was just a chef. Dennis, angry at the diss, had stepped up to him, but Katie calmed him down. After a while, Vigo agreed, left peacefully, and Katie welcomed Dennis to the guild. Months later, while raiding a dungeon, Vigo had just beaten a boss. His party members glazed him like honey bread, and Dennis decided to cook meat that day. Vigo told him there was no time to waste on food, wanting to push Silver Wing to greater heights, prompting Dennis to call him greedy. Vigo angrily asked why Dennis chased level 100 if it wasn't for power, but Dennis could not answer. When the meal was ready, everyone ate and rested. Vigo brooded like a jealous housewife until Katie offered him a meal and shamelessly begged Dennis for seconds. Katie thanked Dennis, saying his food was like medicine to them at the guild, adding that Vigo was grateful too, which Vigo denies. Sometime later, Vigo had fired an adventurer for being useless, but Dennis ran after him, gave him some food, and encouraged him to find a place where he would belong. One day, the Silver Wing Guild was scolded by a noble fatso, who called them incompetent and useless. Just as Vigo was about to jump him, Dennis stopped him. Later that day, at a restaurant, Vigo angrily asked Dennis if he cared about being called useless. Dennis simply replied that he didn't really care for anything. Back in the present, as they fight, Vigo jumps back and dashes forward to attack. Then he uses a magic seal to shatter one of Dennis's knives, attacks again, but Dennis dodges. Vigo then asks why Dennis is so determined to fight, unlike before, when he didn't care, stating that Dennis of the past never did more than necessary. Vigo summons some arrowheads and calls Dennis a nepo baby, adopted into easy money, and dashes to attack. Dennis dodges the arrows in Vigo's strike. Then he starts spamming and summons to trap him, but Vigo cuts through them like butter. Dennis summons another pan from the ground, but Vigo breaks it before flying in for a brutal attack, which Dennis blocks with a pot. Vigo is disappointed and asks if that's his best. Dennis then smokes the place, which angers Vigo. At that moment, Vigo crashes out and starts attacking Dennis brutally, yelling that he is a wimp. Meanwhile, the gang watches anxiously as Dennis is knocked into the air. Panic spreads, but Dennis, midair, recalls what could help him beat Vigo. He remembers his master telling him he would never reach level 100 because he does things half-heartedly. Dennis didn't believe her because his leveling up had never hit a hitch. Dennis lands on the ground, trying to remember why he became a cook. Suddenly, he recalls the first meal of fried rice that the head chef gave him when she brought him home. He realizes he became a chef to help weak people who needed help, like Atelier, hungry friends like Henrietta, and to protect the smiles of his companions. He hears the voices of the outcast members calling to him and sees Atelier holding his magic bracelet. At this point, Vigo charges with a lightning sword. Dennis recalls the head chef's hint for reaching level 100, that the final key is in his heart. Just as Vigo's blade is about to strike, Dennis smiles and blocks the attack with his kitchen knife. Suddenly, he enters a Super Saiyan-style mode, channeling his magical aura like Goku, and tells Vigo, who is shocked when he sees this, that he finally knows who he is protecting. As Dennis charges his attack, everyone is surprised and immediately guesses that he is leveling up. He dashes toward Vigo, who fires magic beams at him, but Dennis dodges into the air, clashing swords with him. Then Dennis unleashes a new skill he calls, "Get out of my shop," which knocks Vigo back and begins pushing him into the ground like a stomped rug. Vigo wonders what kind of skill Dennis just used as his armor compresses in protest. Meanwhile, the gang watches as the spell drives Vigo into the earth continuously. Vivia guesses that the skill must be unique to level 100, while the head chef smiles, impressed that Dennis has finally unlocked his ultimate ability. Vigo struggles, but the spell explodes into a dazzling beam of color that reaches the sky. When the spell dissipates, Vigo is revealed unconscious at the bottom of a huge hole. Dennis, exhausted, is about to collapse, but Henrietta and Vivia catch him before he hits the ground. They congratulate him on reaching level 100, chatting excitedly. Atelier walks up and hands him his magic bracelet. After he thanks her, she offers him her hand for a fist bump. With the battle finally over, the head chef leaves, and Vigo is taken away by the knights on a stretcher, while Katie watches from a hidden corner. A few days later, at Black's restaurant, Katie, now the guild leader of Silver Wing, asks the head chef how Dennis leveled up to 100. The head chef reminds her that she was present when Vigo fought Dennis, but Katie admits she only came to help because she feared Dennis might be in danger, but then was afraid because she had never seen Vigo fight so seriously. She asks again how Dennis managed to level up from 99 to 100. The head chef explains that reaching level 100 isn't about techniques or stats alone. It's about discovering your reason for existing in the world, and the power Dennis gained from it is something only he can wield. She adds that while both she and Dennis are chefs, they chose different paths. While she aimed to be the best chef in the world, while Dennis chose to become the strongest chef in the world to protect the smiles of his friends. His unique skill, "Get out of my shop," reflects his way of defending his restaurant and the people he cares about. Katie asks if chefs should have such ridiculous skills, and the head chef laughs, agreeing that Dennis isn't a normal chef. They both share a laugh over the name of the skill. Elsewhere, Dennis's lookalike, Heath, is having lunch and invites his guard, Fiorenza, to join him. She declines, saying her job is to protect him while he eats. She tells him that Joseph and Vigo's plan has failed. Heath doesn't respond but offers her a bite of his meal again, which she politely refuses. She asks if he expected Dennis to win the fight. Heath replies and says he did, revealing that Dennis is his younger brother. Somewhere at an inn, the gang visits Dennis. They're amazed at his rapid recovery, but Dennis tells them to stop glazing him and asks why they came. They present him with a gift, the blueprint of a new restaurant that Polvo is building for him. Dennis is touched and thanks them. As he examines the blueprint, he notices a huge bath, which Atelier assures him is fine and shoots down his complaints. Then he sees a missing wall, which Vivia explains he replaced with glass to make it look classy, and also suggests turning half the restaurant into a workshop with group table seating. But Dennis yells that such ideas are unnecessary. Next, Dennis notices a fish in the plan. Henrietta explains it's a fish tank where customers can pick the fish they want to eat and watch it cooked live. Dennis immediately shoots down the idea, saying she just wants to loot the store for free fish. Afterwards, it's Bachel's turn, who then proposes a basement for future employees where they could be trapped and made to work 24 hours. But Dennis is creeped out. Thinking it sounds exploitative, Bachel shrugs. Sometime later, Vivia visits Cynthia's grave and tells her that Joseph and his goons' evil was exposed to the world, with everyone connected arrested. Since Joseph is in prison, Atelier was made the new head of the Workstead family, though she declined. Vivia adds that the new restaurant is finally rebuilt and ready to open, and the old gang from Henrietta, now a knight, to Bachel, now a teacher, will also be attending. He says goodbye, promising to return. Elsewhere at the market, Dennis and Atelier shop for supplies, and as they walk, Atelier stops to watch some birds. Just then, a man bumps into her and apologizes. She looks around, thinking she is lost, but Dennis calls out to her, which makes her happy. Later at the restaurant, Dennis hangs a sign officially naming it the Outcast Restaurant, though he admits he isn't entirely fond of the name. Vivia, who has just joined them, likes it, prompting Dennis to mention that a good name is important for business. Inside the restaurant, they find out that Dennis has ignored all the gang's silly design ideas and rebuilt the restaurant as it was before. Atelier, initially upset about the missing bath, gets a pat on the head from Dennis and is asked to help with the food. He asks everyone what they want to eat, then prepares their dishes himself. They enjoy the meal, and Dennis thanks them for helping him rebuild the restaurant and tells them that he wants it to be a safe haven for everyone, whether weak or strong. Soon, Polvo and other customers arrive, and Dennis officially welcomes them to the Outcast Restaurant. That brings us to the end of the video. And if you want more anime recaps like these, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and if you made it to the end, comment skill issue as proof.